Welcome back to another episode, Darl. Recently, I was invited by someone called Nick to attend on his show, on his podcast. I'm just going to share with you the discussion we had. His link will be connected in the description. I hope you enjoyed the conversation we had.
All right, hello, and thank you for joining us on AutisticPod Season 2. This is our first guest for Season 2. I'm excited about this guest. We are sitting here with Daniel Moore. He is an author of the book Neurodiversity, The Missing Link to the Joy of Life. And it's, as I just told him, I wanted to read the book. I did not get the opportunity. That's the way, ADHD works. But I do plan on reading it if I'm able. But good morning, Daniel. He is from across the pond, so it is afternoon for him. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and about what had you write this book.
What got me to write this book was I rather wanted to protest against this idea of going for cures of things like autism, ADHD, Down syndrome, and I rather want more inclusiveness. But as biotechnology is advancing, we're under a big threat of the eugenics movement continuing, going further, of actually wanting to eradicate the disabled. But I've come across so many disabled people who actually don't want to be cured that I can't find any consensus anywhere that says that all disabled people want to be cured, and it's informed consent that I want everyone to have. Such I don't want parents dictating the lives of their children. I actually want children to be able to decide for themselves. But that'll sometimes mean parents can't have their way. So it's a big protest in trying to inform the general public about the things that they don't get educated about at school. Because not everyone leaves schools and then goes and does biology. People have different careers in mind. But when you get these big advertisements put up on the TV or future promises by the medical system, people who don't know about it, but most likely just going to accept it. But even as people like Stephen Hawking, Albert Einstein, from other scientists I've read, they can all say that this could actually lead to our extinction if they decide to go through with it. Such as the way I describe so many disabilities, that it's more to do with social deviation. And what we seem to see psychiatry do, it's more of a marketing plot now, which should explain why there's been this big multiplication of how many people get a diagnosis. It's basically, as soon as someone deviates from a social norm, suddenly they've got a disorder. Which is why in the DSM system, it's so heavily based on behaviour. They don't actually look at anything biological, they don't look at anything developmental. It's just, your behaviour is different to the norm, so there's something wrong with you. And I claim we need a better way of actually discerning what are disorders in general. Such as, I would say that things like autism, which I live with, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're disorders. But you can see that each time they revise the criteria, the spectrum gets broader. Then, as more people get diagnosed with it, more people get sent to things like applied behaviour analysis, then they're profiteer more on it. Even though that science was false science. And we love to claim it's a science area, but we know that it's so out of date behaviourism. They trace all the way back to John Watson. So I actually want to advocate for better treatments, better services for those in need, and to stop profiteering on the people who actually don't need all that service. So I can just see that they're turning disabled people into commodities altogether to make money out of. Sense of respect or dignity treating people with. And I just see that so many people are in denial of their very own doings, such as the claim, no, we're not eugenicists, but anyone who practices embryo selection, you're doing selective breeding, and that makes you an eugenicist. Genetic counsellors, you're going through all these genetics, choosing them artificially, that's eugenics. So we already see that it's ongoing. The pill for birth control, that wasn't approved until 1960, but the fact it was approved in 1960 shows that the eugenics movement did not stop at the Nazi Holocaust. That wasn't the end of eugenics, it continued after World War II. And when we got to the 1970s, as they include them inside the book, the Jews began using it for Tay-Sachs disease. They began using it for that, if that actually is a disease, generally. Because the other thing to point out in the book is that all these disorders are just human classifications. We're the ones who said it's a disorder. Nature never said that, but we did. Then it brings me to these few peculiar questions. There's so many talents that I see with people who've got ADHD, those with Down syndrome, they tend to be more naturally artistic, those with Down syndrome. Autism, they tend to be far better with systems and patterns. And so each one of these neurodivergent disabilities has skills, but why don't we find any medical research or research done on these skills, but only the so-called deficits, just deficit after deficit. But I think more research should be done on the positive aspects.
This is exactly what I've been saying, Daniel. I said the same thing. Why don't we talk about the positive end of the autism spectrum with math and science and art and design and pattern recognition and even empathy and love,
Yeah, I've come across a lot of autistic individuals who do express higher levels of empathy compared to the majority of people, and when it actually overwhelms them. But I actually would describe them as actual empaths, as if they can feel the other person's emotions as well as their own. And then that's just so overwhelming for them, and especially when it's something like depression that the other person might be experiencing. So I find it pretty cruel of those like medical services to just go preying on someone's depression, to prey on what they've labelled deficits, when they could actually be looking at these more positive aspects, which I look at. That's why I'm in support of neurodiversity. And the power which I see is one big problematic part of what they're doing is they always label the extremes as deficits. So if you're either too high or too low, right? And that tends to be the way it goes. So in today's generation, you've got autism, one disorder on each end. Then say if they eradicate all of that, you'll then go to it'll narrow in. Then these will be the new disorders. Then it'll narrow down the new disorders. Then eventually, there's no diversity there. And without diversity, our species won't survive whatsoever. So I actually promote diversity in general. And we hear so much today by those who do things like ecology, about looking after the environment, but we've got big biodiversity losses that are going and negatively affecting the climate change even more greatly. So one of the questions they ask inside the book, as I point out, all neurological development, all brains, bodies, they're biological. So doesn't that mean that neurodiversity is actually part of biodiversity? And then if biodiversity losses are going and causing us problems, how exactly is it beneficial to go destroying neurodiversity when that's another part of biodiversity? So they even go contradicting their own claims. But again, this is from one of the positive aspects where those who are neurodivergent think outside of the box. They do out of the box thinking. And that's actually one of the things I've always liked about myself, in that it made me get low grades in school, but those like Albert Einstein got low grades in school.
Yep.
The way I see school is, I don't see it any different to the way religions work. All the way from families who are still members of religions. Like, I'm religious myself even, but I don't fall into the trap that I see people do. Is I often see parents in my religion compelling their kids to go believe this. They're being compelled to believe something, but they didn't come to that conclusion themselves. And then I say the school system works the same way. It just makes you regurgitate what a teacher said. You can't think for yourself, so you only come to these conclusions because you've just regurgitated what a teacher said. You didn't need to do any thinking. So it's literally just another brainwashing program, the education system.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree.
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
Dave, just talk about my religion one for a moment, about
Yeah, definitely.
Of how brainwashed some of them are.
Mm-hmm.
I see religion as philosophical, but I often get other Christians, sometimes Catholics, sometimes Protestants, and they come up saying to me, "No, we can prove all of this is true." But I write inside my book, "No, I know this can't be proven true." I say, so even though that's what I believe, the Christians then say to me, "Yeah, we can prove it true. We've got all this archaeology and so on." But I haven't said to them, "Do you believe the Bible?" They say yes. Does the Bible say you require faith? They go, yes. I say, well, there you go. Now, you can't exactly know something if you've got to have faith in it. You have faith in it because you've got no evidence.
Yep.
Having decided to have a bit of fun with them, such as when they bring up the archaeology, I said to them, "Oh, I've seen London's King's Cross, but I've also seen this book called Harry Potter. So, I've seen the archaeology of this book. Does that mean everything in this book is true?"
That's beautiful. Oh, I love that logic, man. That's so great.
And that's another one of the advantages of neurodivergent people, is how they tend to be naturally more logic.
Yep. That's literally my mission statement of my podcast, is to bring logic and reason back into society, because we've just become, and it's so interesting to me that you have this mindset over in the UK, because I'm in the US, obviously. And, we're going through RFK Jr. Are you familiar at all with anything that's happening with RFK Jr.?
Yeah, Robert Francis Kennedy, I've been keeping my eye on him. It's been on the BBC News here in the UK recently that apparently over 700 of federal health professionals have told me recently that by the 2nd of September he's got to do 3 certain things, such as stop giving out false information about health, and a couple of others, but I've quite forgotten because I read the article a couple of days ago.
Yeah, no worries. I wouldn't be able to remember I read an article, so.
But just by knowing that he was an anti-vaccinist, I think that should have been a big red flag. Don't put him in that base.
Well, that's why they wanted him. That's exactly why they wanted him, is because that's Trump's base. That's what they've convinced these people of, is that vaccines are a bad thing, because obviously measles, would have just disappeared without vaccines. Rubella, polio, all of these things were on the rise. But then when vaccines came out, they all disappeared over years because of vaccines, but it would have happened anyway, regardless. The vaccines were not part of that. It's the dumbest thing that it's this plot. They think there's, you have the crazy ones that think there's microchips that control you. And then you just have the ones that think they're poisoning you because reasons. I don't understand. It's just so stupid. It's just bad science.
Yeah, like some things including Sam about come to Andrew Wakefield and his vaccine and so on. Such as pointing out, Andrew Wakefield did it for financial gain. And we see that RFK's doing it for the same reason.
Yeah.
Right. It is doing it for monetary gain. But I'll point out, research shows that autism predates vaccines. So if a vaccine is the cause of autism, what was causing autism 1,000 years ago? We didn't have vaccines then. I said, we're seeing identical twin studies that one twin could be autistic and the other one's not. So that shows it can't be 100% genetic. There must be something else involved. But I can't seem to apply this logic. But then when you look back at school, you weren't taught how to reason in the school system. That's why I don't see a very big point in school. Like, someone on Facebook was challenging me about this the other day. But I said, I asked him the question, why are no textbooks in schools 10 years old? I asked them. And then he said, oh, because they all contain false information. I said, yeah, and 10 years ago when you did your grades, what did you write on that test paper? All the false information in that book.
Exactly.
So the people who didn't get the grade, they were more likely right than you.
Yeah, it's and then you have, I don't like talking politics, but it's hard not to when you talk about, neurodivergency and everything, because it's just it's so ingrained, it's so connected. We have people over here in the US, Trump and his Project 2025, where they're trying to, change the curriculum in school to where they don't talk about slavery, they don't talk about, they're trying to whitewash history so that they look better. Or sometimes it's so difficult for me, and it's probably because I think of with logic and reason as opposed to manipulation and duplicity. But it's so difficult sometimes to see the end goal, to see the benefit that they're getting from this. It boggles my mind sometimes.
The thing is, I've got the feeling that don't have an end goal. Because such a one of the patterns I point out inside my book is that it tends to be consumers drive the market drives the politics, and the politics drive the science. So science is the one in lead. But depending on what politics decides, such as if neurodiversity gets the more dominant side, that's going to determine what questions the scientist asks. But that depends on what the consumers want.
Interesting.
See, that's an ongoing pattern which goes on today. Such as with Big Pharma. Write a bit about Big Pharma over in Sam book and give a bit of a metaphorical example, such as how they do astroturfing a lot. Of how they try to make it like something's a disorder when it's actually not. And then they debunk this stuff by applying their own logic to them. For example, they claim that people with sickle cell anemia, they claim that they're genetically inferior because of the sickle cell mutation. But I point out that those without the sickle cell mutation are more susceptible to malaria infections. So why don't we claim those without the sickle cell mutation are genetically inferior? They're more susceptible to this disease. But these ones are protected from it. The ones you're claiming are inferior. So you just throw the same logic back at them. And you see that really they're just targeting specific groups of people.
Yeah, and I mean, and just with my autism, I mean, when you look at, I mean, who are the largest sufferers of sickle cell,
Yeah,
isn't it? And then obviously they come from a land of mosquitoes. Malaria is a huge problem in Africa. So it was probably, through, I mean, it sounds to me with no education or anything, just trying to connect dots that it was evolutionary. It was their bodies trying to protect them from the more dangerous thing.
yeah. Adaptation, as Charles Darwin said, it was all about adapting to change evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And he included in the book that since they're trying to medically control evolution, it's as if they're talking like evolution is a disease and not a natural process.
Yeah.
Otherwise, well, they feel they need to medically control it.
Yeah, I don't know how many movies we have to show that that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Movies and books.
And we can't seem to learn it.
Yep. Nope. We never do.
Yeah.
I was gonna say earlier, I was talking to ChatGPT the other day, and I was just I was asking it about my podcast. Then I was bored. I asked it to explain society, and it had an interesting take, and I wanted to see what you thought. So it said, I think society is an ongoing attempt to make sense of our shared vulnerability. Every system, culture, or ritual humans have created, from governments to religions to social media, is in some way a coping mechanism for the fact that we're finite, fragile, and often afraid. The human condition seems to be a paradox. Connection versus isolation. People long to belong, but often feel misunderstood even in crowds. Meaning versus survival. The basics of life, food, shelter, safety absorb so much energy, yet people ache for art, purpose, and transcendence. Empathy versus indifference. Humans are capable of extraordinary kindness and also breathtaking cruelty, sometimes within the same person or society. What I admire, ChatGPT says, is that despite pain, imperfection, and conflict, people keep creating music, stories, friendships, movements. That persistent feels almost defiant, as if humans are saying, yes, it's hard here, but I'm going to leave something behind anyway. If I had to sum it up, society is messy scaffolding around the deeper truth that humans are just trying to matter to each other in their own way.
Yeah, I would agree with most of that, of where humans are looking for a sense of meaning to their life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually one of the parts in the book which they talk about is people don't quite know a purpose to their life. But I point out that if you don't know a purpose of your life, they're the people who have a lack of quality in life.
Yeah. See, I tried to determine the meaning of life myself. I feel like I've gotten a pretty good answer. For me, originally it was be around like-minded people and communicate and challenge yourself, and then it grew into grow every day. Challenge yourself, become better than you were yesterday. Because if you do that every day that you're capable of it, you're just going to keep becoming a better and more happy person.
Yeah. Such that that reminds me of one of the problems I see within the medical services now. Rather than actually being about healing and health, it's become more to do with quality of life.
Okay.
So rather than actually being about healing people, now they'd rather terminate a fetus that tests positive for a disability.
Right.
Because they're going and thinking that, oh, this fetus will have a terrible life. So they think, oh, so we're not going to let that one be born.
I would argue that it's not about the terrible life. Sorry to interrupt, if it's okay, but it's about the imposition, because I had a daughter who was born early, who had to have 3 different surgeries done when she was born. She had to have a tracheostomy, she had to have a Nissen fundoplication, and a G tube put in. Her mother, my ex-wife, and I decided, at that 3 weeks, that it was really us that it was impositioning, not her, because she would grow to understand that this is, just like another appendage. This is just something that's always there. She's not going to know the difference.
Yeah. I have a challenge this logic, which people who actually want to be eugenicists go saying oh, if we know someone's going to suffer in life, we shouldn't let them be born. So I challenge that logic and say, well, would you find this acceptable? Girls are more likely to suffer sexual abuse, trauma, and more other forms of abuse.
Well, the Chinese agree. Sorry, I had to.
So does that mean we shouldn't let girls be born? And I say, Africans at the moment are very low on water, living in dirty water, having to. So does that mean we shouldn't let Africans be born?
I think that's what Donald Trump would say. I honestly do. I think that's his end goal. I think that's Republicans' end goal, is to have the entire world be white and Christian and focused on making money, because that seems like all they're focused on.
And then I had a little bit onto the top of that with
sure.
Within it is point out in my book that if we didn't suffer, if humans at all didn't suffer, we'd have no sense of love for one another, no sense of care,
exactly.
No compassion.
Exactly.
Such as if I didn't suffer from autism, I don't quite see myself caring so much about other disabled people.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd care as much as I do.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, good. I was just going to say, you've seen, I've seen it before, and I've talked about that, where you see Republicans that fight for gay rights. The only time they did it was when they had a gay son, because they know that it was by choice. They know it wasn't by choice. They know that there was nothing wrong with their son. They've seen it firsthand. But every other conservative person would just be like, oh, gayness is an abomination because the Bible says so, even though it doesn't.
Yeah, that's another thing I've often got to say to Christians, is the Bible doesn't say that.
Yup.
Yeah. Such as, I even ask them sometimes, where in the Bible is the word transgender?
Yep.
Where's the word bisexual in the Bible? Where's this word, that word? But I can never answer.
Oh, well, they would just say, oh, well, that's just Satan. He's created all of that. That's exactly. See, that stuff didn't exist back then in Bible times.
Yeah, that's what I come across most of it.
Oh yeah.
They often say to me, "Oh, you're possessed by the devil."
Oh yeah. Those people. There's no helping those people. Oh my goodness. Oh boy.
Yeah. I often say to them when they try to go against an atheist arguments about it, I say, why on earth do you say to an atheist you're going to hell? The atheist doesn't believe in hell.
I know. See, I used to be an atheist. I've become more agnostic. There's definitely something out there that we don't understand, but it's not an invisible man judging us by rules,
Yeah.
I mean, life is so big. Life can be so beautiful. I mean, we all have beautiful memories of days. I mean, it's tough right now, but I mean, when you just, and even with my terrible memory, I can still think back when I focus on it. Like my fiance and I went to Hawaii 2 years ago. We had so much fun. It was just beautiful. We went off road onto these places, and we found these beautiful off the path cliffs with these gorgeous. I've got pictures galore on my phone, and I can never remember them. Have you seen the movie Memento? Do you like movies?
I used to watch them a lot, but I don't watch them as much anymore.
See, they're my hyper focus. I love movies, TV. I love good actors. I love good. I love good filmmaking.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like you do, and that's okay. You know, I mean, we each have our hyper focus. I was just going to say, I have a tattoo from a movie that's about my ADHD because as my ADHD has gotten worse, so it reminds me every time that I look at it to live in the moment. You know, and I think that that's what life is all about. Is just living the moment that we have and making sure that we're doing what we can to be a beneficial part of society, that we're not making people feel scared, hurt, threatened, you know, and I mean, within reason, obviously. Some people are overly fearful. Perfect example. Can I tell you something that happened recently?
Yeah.
I'm on Threads, and I ran into a group of people that were talking about how they don't have any empathy. This is their affliction. They are autistic without any empathy. And so I tried to respond in a way that I thought would be helpful. But apparently, what I said was like the worst thing, and they took it the wrong way. But instead of hearing me when I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I just don't understand the concept of not having empathy because I'm, you know, like you said, I feel like I'm one of those empaths because I can empathize with people. And so hearing the idea that you don't have empathy terrifies me. I can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
But 20 people proceeded to jump on me, call me a bigot, call me a white supremacist, call me this, and they're still stalking my pages, just saying that like they're going to cancel me because they think something about me, that they've jumped to this conclusion. And the point I was trying to make is that is too far. That is too far on the I'm offended meter. That's what I keep saying, is that there are extremes on both sides of the liberal and the conservatives, and both of them, extremes are the problem, in my opinion. So I just wanted to share that and get your take, because I respect the way you see things, and I respect your take on things.
Yeah. Like where I've said, people like yourself who can actually be described as genuine empaths. Most of these people say autistic people don't have empathy.
I know.
Often have a lower level of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
So since they're experiencing your level, they don't recognise your level. So they think this is empathy, but your empathy is way up there, but they don't recognise it.
Yep. And then they think I'm trying to be mean because I have high empathy and I'm trying to empathize with them, and then they like take that as an attack because they don't and I tried to word it in a way that would make sense if I didn't have empathy, but yeah, it was not appreciated, and now I'm a villain to them when I would literally have any one of them on the podcast and be like, what's it like to not have empathy? Talk about your plight, talk about this. You know, I want to empathize with you and share your story. But now that you've just been jerks and just judged me, unfairly, I don't want. Now all I think about about this is that most of you are just judgmental jerks. So this is why you're in your plight. It's not because of society. It's because of the way you act towards people who don't understand you. Instead of saying, hey, I don't have empathy, so, this is difficult for me, or I run into all this all the time, I feel like people are attacking me, or understanding who you are as a person. No, you just lash out at everybody else because everybody else is the problem. You couldn't possibly do anything different because you're perfect. And that's why the number one rule I have is grow every day. And if everybody in society focused on that, we would be in a much better place, in my opinion.
Yeah, we would.
Yeah.
But some people think they're already there.
Exactly. And you're never there. Even when you get to 80 years old, you can still be learning new things.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And that's why I have my podcast, is so I can learn new things. And that's why I bring on people. And, I had been bringing on just random guests, and I may get back to it, but I want to focus on talking about neurodivergency and people's neurodivergent experience. So let's talk about it. What was growing up neurodivergent like for you? Did you grow up in the UK, I assume?
Yeah. For me, I just found it interesting that as young as 9 years old, that's when I was researching it, that wanting to learn more and more. Why am I so different to everyone around me? Wondering why am I always the black sheep or the odd one out? But in the end, I actually became glad that I was the odd one out.
What do you mean by that?
There was always something different about me, whether it was my ideas and thoughts, or whether it was my behaviour. Sometimes by the odd one out, it was a negative thing, but sometimes it was the positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Such as when I went to college to do a few more maths, for example, this is where being the odd one out came useful. Got home, went through the full textbook, got all the way through it, marked it, but pointed 32 wrong answers out in the answer section. Took it back to the college and told the professor. But he said, no, there's no errors in the back of it. He said, solve just one of them then. Then he solved it. He solved it and he got the same answer as me, but then he said, oh, I must be wrong. So he thought he himself was wrong. I said, oh, just ask the rest of the class to solve it then, just one of them.
Oh my gosh.
So he chose the easiest one. The rest of the class got the same answer, and he was still like, no, the whole class must be wrong. Said, oh, I had to tell him, can you wake up? When can you figure out that an answer in a textbook can't be wrong?
This sounds like a cartoon. How could he not understand at that point that it was just the book? Why was he so dedicated to not accepting the fact that a book can be wrong? Maybe I guess he's super religious.
So just by me being willing to step out that box, yeah, I maybe misunderstood this one, so yeah, I can give myself a crossfire. I got that one wrong, but 2x plus 1 equals 5. Then they claim that x equals 3. I'm sure I haven't got that one wrong. So then, even though we were sure that the x would equal 2, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. I showed anybody it said 3 in the book. Clearly, it's the book that's wrong there. So the education system further even makes people stop trusting themselves.
Yep.
Even obvious matters.
Yep.
So I'm glad to be the book there.
And I ran into the same thing in school. I was the one that would correct the teacher, and I would get sent to the office for it. I was a troublemaker, man. I was so antsy at school because I was so bored, because the things they would talk about did not interest me in the slightest. I understood everything that they explained, and I get that they have to make sure that everybody gets it, but they need I don't know if I should have been in gifted or what it was. I don't think I would have enjoyed gifted. I didn't want extra work or anything. I always just wanted to, imagine and write, and I don't write anymore. I can't write. I've become so logical, and but when I was a kid, I can remember I had a crazy imagination. I used to talk about dragons and all this stuff. I used to, and I have read a lot of fantasy books. I've read some Dragonlance and some. I have this series that I enjoyed called The Symphony of the Ages, Rhapsody, by oh goodness, I want to say her name, Jennifer Hayden. It's definitely Hayden. I think it's Jennifer. But yeah, that's one of the best series I've ever read. I really enjoyed that. But I love fantasy settings. I love big, just epic worlds that are so thought out, and that I can get Lord of the Rings. Every geek loves Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. Just the worlds are just so thought out. My mom actually read us Lord of the Rings. I remember, I haven't thought about that in a long time, but that's a nice core memory. Is that my mother was a huge Lord of the Rings fan. She made a giant poster board of the entire map of Middle Earth in college, and she still had it. And so we bought her a really nice leather-bound set of Lord of the Rings of all 3 books, unabridged, with Tom Bombadil and everything in there. And she would read it to us. And me in particular, as the youngest of 3 children, she would read it to me for hours on end. I can remember lying on her waterbed and falling asleep as she read. And I can remember thinking that Gollum, this is really funny. This is completely random. I've never said this out loud. But I used to play a game called Dragon Warrior on the Nintendo Entertainment System. If you ever played that game, and there were these big stone creatures called golems, Golem, and she was reading to me, so I didn't know what the spelling was. So when she said Gollum, every time, even though they give an apt description of him, I would picture one of those stone golems. So that's just a random, ADHD thought there that I, felt like sharing because it's near and dear to me.
I've seen that I'm mixing things. That's what brings more creativity.
Right.
But then again, when you look to schools, they don't allow creativity.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So in schools, creative thinking's lost. And that's why one of the other positives of neurodiversity is by thinking in such a different way. And it was things like me thinking in a different way, which is why I was so annoying to the teachers at school. Why I'm so annoying to so many other people today. Because just by willing to ask questions, it rather drills into them a bit of uncertainty about their view. Just by asking a question about it.
Yeah, the craziness can be convinced of, and neurodivergence too, that the idea, one of the ideas that I'm running into that I will not back down on is that people cannot be racist to white people. That's what I'm being told, is that white, a race of people, you cannot be racist to them because there's power involved. They've recreated these words. They've changed these words over time to represent their biases. To say, and I'm not, again, it's just a matter of fact. It's if a white person or a person of color says something to me that is derogatorily racist, it's racist. If they comment on me because of my race, no matter what you are being racist to a white person. It doesn't require power dynamic or anything. I don't care how many people argue it.
Yeah, and this is something I write about in my book as well, where I say that this is why racial justice movements, the women's rights movement, and so on are actually all being done in vain. Because it works the same way with men and women as well, where apparently you can't be sexist towards a woman.
Exactly.
So I point out in the book, well, as long as women keep, and I put it towards the disabled, where I make the disabled ones the target of them. I point out that as long as, say, black women, as long as they keep wanting to, say, cure neurodivergent people and eradicate them, not even allow them the right to life, well, you're never going to have black women, white women, or men and women, LGBTQIA, all with equal rights. By women taking away the rights of disabled girls, well, women are never going to have equal rights. So just by dividing them into all these categories of power, then the power flipping from one side to the other each time. you never will get to equality.
Yeah, that's what I talk about. They talk about the paradox of tolerance. I talk about the paradox of marginalization, because they want to marginalize. They want to say you're more important because you have more labels. You're queer, you're trans, you're black, you're this. Okay, so you what you say is most important. It doesn't matter if their content is good. And then who do you put all the way on the bottom? So what happens to the person that's on the bottom? They're being marginalized. They're the most marginalized person. So now
Yeah,
you have marginalized someone by trying to elevate someone. So now who do you have to unmarginalize to elevate them, because they're the most marginalized person? You can't. So
yeah,
continually somebody is on the bottom and then they're the most marginalized person. It's a paradox. Marginalization
yeah,
does not work logically. Fight me, anybody. It's
yeah,
clear as day.
yeah. This is one of the sounds just like one of the points I make in my book when I talk about medical science. Is a point out that basically they've turned the so-called normal into the abnormal that they have, because basically, since it's anything which diverges, like neurodivergence, if it diverges from this normal one, which is basically diversity, apparently it's a disease.
Yep.
So now it's human diversity is the disease, but scientifically speaking, diversity is the rule. We
Yeah.
are all different.
Yeah.
But when I come across these people who say, no, there is any such thing as a normal human, I just ask them, is it normal to be different? Then they say, yeah. I said, well, how am I not normal then? And they say, because you've got these biological differences. Oh, but you just said it's normal to be different.
That's exactly what I
so
say. Yep, there is no normal.
so
The what I've found in my 43 years of life on this earth is the people that are most normal are the ones that are least normal. They are hiding the fact that they, party with little boys on islands and things, by
yeah,
putting on this perfect portrayal of normality, by giving the society exactly what they want. That is the person that you have to fear the most. That's the person with the most skeletons in their closet 99 times out of 100.
yeah. Uh, Basically social conformity. They just put a mask on.
Yeah, exactly, and they can.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I've talked about it many times on the podcast. So I won't get into it, but I mean, I unconsciously masked for over 20 years until recently. I was trying to mask farther. I was getting down on myself because I was failing at the job, and interpersonal personality. I was killing it. I've been the top salesman all 3 years at that company, but I was failing in the sense that I couldn't work with inside everybody's personality and get along with everyone. And so I would look at the people that would just, fake, obviously, be totally fake to your face, and then, go back and talk shit about you later. And I'd be like, why can't I do that? And that's when I unearthed the fact that it's because I'm already masking to my capacity. I'm trying to be as normal as I understand it works, and it's killing me. I got so depressed that I contemplated suicide. I was literally at a point last year, just 8 months ago, where I was just, I was at the point where I was like, I'm not for this earth. I don't fit in. Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me as a person. And then now I can look back and see it's because I wasn't being my true self. I wasn't being my real person. But it was because society had told me, like you're saying, I'm not normal. So I'm not right. I need to conform to this bullshit creation that society has said that everybody needs to be, and it's not true.
yeah, yeah. And then this is another positive aspect of neurodivergence, which I've sometimes got to say back to people is they say that I'm the one who's not in reality. we go claiming, and I point to them, do you get along well in the social world? And I've been asking them, do you think our world's a bit dysfunctional at the minute? And they always say yes. I'm gonna, who functions well in a dysfunctional society?
Oh,
And point out, dysfunctional people.
oh, I
That's
love that,
stuff.
Daniel. That is fantastic.
Yeah, so that's why we don't fit in.
That
We're
is
not the dysfunctional.
so good. That is my clip for this. That is definitely going to be my clip for this episode. Oh my goodness. I love that, man.
I'd just like to point out, as you mentioned, power quite a lot. We've got all these power systems in place. Why is the majority trying to sustain them? But when we actually know that shows that only a minority are the logical ones.
Yeah. See, my observation. I just lost my light here. Hang on. There we go. That's not gonna fix it, but it makes it a little better. That my observation is that the most, because I'm more, I don't know, emotional maybe, but my observation is that the most undiagnosed syndrome that needs to be addressed, that is destroying society, not just America, but the world, is the need for more money, is the need to never having enough money. These people that have hundreds of millions of dollars that want to scam people to get even more money, that are in government, Donald Trump, all of these people, Elon Musk, all these, Jeff Bezos, the people that want these mega yachts that I get, you're allowed to spend your money, but there's a limit, I mean, once you get to $500 million, what more are you doing with your money other than breaking the backs of people and just causing issues in the world? What are you doing to benefit the world that allowed you to reach that level of success? That's my new question. What are you doing to benefit the world that allowed you to reach that level of success? Because yes, you did a large part of it. However, you couldn't have done it without customers. You couldn't have done it without society. You couldn't have done it without. So why don't you look after the human race? Why don't you, uh, why do you want to collect people off the street and throw them in jail because they're a different color and because they're at a hearing trying to become American citizens? Why do you want to put them in a jail in Florida where there's alligators surrounding it and laugh about it and leave them in cells for days on end with children? And I mean, they put adults with children in these camps, in these detention centers, and they have a bucket in the middle of the thing where people are shitting. I mean, how is that not child abuse? How is that not exposing yourself in front of adults? We're children. I mean, this is just it makes it I can't speak. It infuriates me, and that's probably my empathy, because I mean, just imagine being that person. Imagine that you're just going about your day and somebody grabs you off the street and tells you that you're going to go to this detention center now, and all the work that you did to get out of a dangerous situation, you're going back to that dangerous situation when they told you your whole life that America was a place where you could make it as yourself if you applied yourself and played by the rules.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. So
that's my tangent. And you're over in the UK, so you don't see it as much as I do. But yeah, I mean, it's appalling.
We do have our problems.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. Do you have any more that you want to talk about neurodiversity? You've already hit fantastic points.
I'd say just to invite people to think more about the positive differences that neurodiversity brings, and to actually remember with the whole theory of evolution, everything that's naturally selected is fit. But when it comes to health in general, something's only healthy if it's determined by balance between body, mind, and environment. So if something's not fit within a person, it's to do with the environment. Something in the environment's causing the disturbance. And if these behaviours that this neurodivergent share, if they were not needed, they wouldn't have been selected. And just to share one more thing, which I include in the book,
Sure.
is that when I bring up people like Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, and some of these other historical figures who are suspected to be neurodivergent, is a point out why there's so few revolutionists. There's been lots of scientists, but why there's so few revolutions, and then go back to their logic, they say, oh, the majority is the best way. Say, but revolutionists are a minority. I point out. So that must mean that revolutions are a disorder, not the order, but they're the disorder. And it takes a disordered person to make a disorder. So Albert Einstein is autistic, I suspected. He'd make revolutions. Isaac Newton is bipolar. He'd make revolutions. Mozart with ADHD. He'd be expected to make revolutions as he did in his music.
Da Vinci was probably some type of neurodivergent.
Yeah. Ludwig van Beethoven suffered bipolar. That's where his depression was from.
And he was deaf.
They found that all these celebrities. Yeah. Deaf and still able to do it.
Yep.
I think the bright side of Beethoven being deaf was, regardless of how many people told him, oh, you won't be able to do music, he didn't hear it.
I love it.
So even being deaf had a positive. So there was even a good side to being deaf.
Yeah. No, I mean when I hear you talking, it just makes me more realize that like you said, evolution is deciding that neurotypicals and everything are, I don't know if it's epigenetics or what it is, but it's almost like we know that the human race, is going to destroy itself if logic is not brought into the conversation. If people that can solely just look at something and say, this is fucked, I can give you 800 different reasons of why it's fucked. Let's talk and try to get this unfucked.
Yeah, but most people just can't do it.
Yep, they're just like, oh, shut up. You're not important, or you need power. And I guess that's why they do what they do, is so they have the power, so they can make the rules, and this is the benefit, I guess, of when they get power. Great. This is what we can look forward to.
Yeah.
Who's the next one on the hit list? Well, when's it your turn for you to not be a benefit to their list,
Yeah.
That's what I see. That's why I'm doing the podcast. But I love the way you see things, Daniel. I love talking with you. I love all the connections you could make with your book. So we'll say it again.
Yeah.
This is Daniel's book. He is on with the pattern recognition. He is going to say things that you have not thought of before. You'll probably not, you may not make all the connections that he makes, but I respect every single one of them because I know that they are researched and that they are accurate. Any final thoughts, Daniel?
No, I'd say we've discussed enough of it.
Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I'll stop the podcast and we can chat a little more if you want afterwards. But yeah, So listeners, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Leave a comments, if you have any thoughts, if you like Daniel, if you want to see him on the podcast again, if you have any questions for him. And until our next conversation, everybody have a great day.
If you made it this far, thank you for watching and listening. And if you remember, Nick's site will be in the description. And please may subscribe and like this video. I'll see you next time. Thank you.